Alice, help yourself. Margaret's cooking is always delicious.
Kendrick, my brother-in-law, placed a plate in front of my daughter-in-law, Alice. Alice made a face of blatant disgust. She glanced at the plate and then at me, pinching her nose.
No, thank you. I don't eat homemade food made by a dropout who can only do caregiving jobs. It's filthy. What?
Kendrick, sobered by Alice's words, froze, and everyone stopped eating.
Food made by dirty people belongs in the trash.
With a thin smile, Alice threw my homemade dish into the garbage. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Just then, my 8-year-old granddaughter, Ruby, burst into laughter. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old and earned my caregiving certification 3 years ago. I met my husband, Tariq, when we both worked at a food processing company. His kind nature won me over, and we got married. Soon after, I became a housewife when I had our child. When our son, Daniel, started elementary school, I took on a part-time job with help from my mother-in-law, Tracy. To help with our household finances, I worked as a cashier at a supermarket until my mid-40s. At the end of that year, Tracy suffered a stroke, which left her needing constant care, and I quit my part-time job. Daniel had graduated from college, so we no longer needed to send him financial support, which was a relief. I had been married for over 20 years, and my relationship with Tariq was great. I was also on good terms with Tracy and wanted to care for her out of gratitude. Reality was tough. I was woken up multiple times at night to take her to the bathroom. I couldn't disturb Tariq, who had a full-time job, so I was perpetually sleep-deprived. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, Tracy passed away.
Margaret, thank you for taking care of Mom until the end. Thank you for treating her so well.
I'm sorry, Tracy. I cried into Tariq's chest as he thanked me. Having only cared for her at home for less than a year, I was filled with regret, feeling I could have done more. Tariq, I think I want to work in caregiving.
What?
Trying to shake off my regret, I told Tariq of my plan. One motivation was that the caregiving profession didn't require formal education. I had dropped out of high school when our family business demanded more of my time. Shortly after, my dad passed away from exhaustion. To support our family, I took a job at a food company factory where I met Tariq.
Margaret, I know you're determined and have the stamina, but don't overdo it. Thank you. Don't worry about old age, I'll take care of you.
Despite the tough aspects of caregiving, I enjoyed a fulfilling life thanks to Tariq's constant support. One day, our peaceful life was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. Daniel and his family, who had recently bought a house an hour away, came to visit.
Mom, it's your birthday this month, right?
Here's an early present.
Grandma, happy birthday!
I felt a surge of joy hearing my son, Daniel, and my granddaughter, Ruby's voices at the door. I wish you had told me you were coming. Whenever my schedule came out, I would email Daniel my days off. Daniel made sure to bring Ruby, who was now 8, to visit once a month.
Grandma, Mom is here today too.
Ruby cheerfully pointed towards the car. I couldn't see her from where I stood.
Oh, that's nice. Mom came too.
Feigning welcome for Ruby's sake, I waved at the car, but Alice showed no sign of getting out. All right, we'll be leaving now.
What? You came all this way, stay for lunch.
I wasn't thrilled about Alice's presence, but it had been a month since I last saw Ruby, and I didn't want to send her away so soon. Of course, I also wanted Daniel to enjoy my cooking.
Really? Grandma, I want to eat your food.
How sweet she was to say that. I bent down to hug Ruby, feeling overjoyed. At that moment, Alice's hysterical voice rang out from above.
Ruby, why are you inside the house? We've already given the present. We're leaving.
Her voice made my shoulders twitch. She was probably irritated that the two hadn't come back yet.
Mom said she would serve homemade food. Ruby wanted to eat too.
Sensing Alice's irritation, Daniel tried to defuse the situation with an excuse. Since they got married out of love at first sight, Daniel was weak against Alice.
I want to go shopping. I don't have time to waste in a place like this. What?
A place like this, does she mean our home? I was stunned by Alice's words. Seeing her raised eyebrows and twisted lips, I couldn't muster the energy to retort.
Daniel, you said we were just dropping off the present. You liar. Huh? Sometimes I want to eat Mom's homemade food too. Oh, here we go again. A grown man still clinging to his mommy. It's disgusting.
Feeling uneasy as the couple's argument escalated from above, I tried to calm things down.
Alice, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep you. Ruby, your mom wants to go shopping. Maybe next time.
I crouched down and gently suggested to Ruby that they leave.
I dressed up for this. Ruby, are your clothes dirty?
Alice spoke as if implying that just being around me had dirtied Ruby's clothes. She lightly dusted Ruby's outfit. Muttering to herself, she continued.
You were hugged by Grandma, weren't you? I can't believe this. I'm sorry. I was just so happy.
Trying to smooth things over, I apologized to Alice. Thinking back, I've always done this since Ruby was born.
Isn't that a bit too harsh?
Daniel, usually calm, argued back at Alice. Maybe he was frustrated because I didn't stand up for myself.
But Margaret works in caregiving, right? She's always handling dirty stuff at her filthy job. Huh? That's why I don't want to come to a house with someone like that, and I don't want Ruby touching her.
Alice spat out her words quickly. Ah, so that's it. I finally understood Alice's true feelings. That's why she had avoided me since we first met. I met Alice 10 years ago. I was in my 5th year of caregiving. I was used to the work and enjoyed sharing stories with the people I cared for. I remember telling Alice about it.
Their smiles while playing hand games are adorable. Hearing the hardships of life's seniors is enlightening. I love this job.
Maybe I shouldn't have shared so much with Alice, who laughed through her nose at me. I probably said too much.
Caregiving is amazing. Even someone like me who dropped out of high school can become a certified caregiver or care manager with practical experience and knowledge.
What?
You dropped out of high school? But it's still a bottom-tier job. Huh?
I've been looked down upon and avoided since that day. Alice holds prejudices against jobs she considers low class. I remember deciding it was pointless to say anything more. Alice is an elite who graduated from a top university and got a job at a major company. I heard Daniel pursued her intensely as a new employee. He proposed to her because she saw potential in him as they were from the same university. But when she heard about our educational backgrounds, she was as disappointed as if the world had ended.
I didn't know Margaret and Tarek were dropouts. Daniel, you're a liar.
Alice, who called Daniel a liar, didn't seem beautiful at all. She hasn't changed in the past 10 years. That's why I can't get along with Alice.
No! I want to eat at Grandma's house. I don't want to go shopping.
Ruby shouted her feelings, shaking off Alice's hand. I was shocked to see Ruby's rebellion for the first time.
Then Ruby, just stay at Grandma's house.
But the next moment, Alice's angry voice cut through the air at the entrance, snapping me back to reality. Alice's voice continued.
Such a spoiled child isn't ours. You'll get sick if you eat what Grandma made. What? Alice, that's not true at all.
I hugged Ruby, who was on the verge of tears, and protested against Alice.
Enough. This is why I didn't want to come. Both Daniel and my parents all graduated from university. So what? It's unfair to Ruby. What if her friends make fun of her because her grandparents are in low-status jobs? You need to realize this.
I was astonished at Alice's unreasonable accusation.
Mom, I'm really sorry. Ruby, I'll buy you that toy you've wanted for a while. Let's go.
Daniel made a pleading gesture towards me, picked up Ruby, and followed Alice. I could only stand there, dumbfounded, as they left. When I looked at the hand cream they had given me, tears fell from my eyes. My late mother-in-law Tracy had a brother who was about to turn 100 and was still in good health. The whole family gathered to celebrate Kendrick's 100th birthday. It had been a month since the humiliating incident with Alice. Tracy had been a kind person, and Kendrick was the same, always offering me kind words whenever we met.
Margaret, thank you for everything. I'm looking forward to your cooking today.
I hope you like it. The celebration was held at the main family home in the countryside. I had prepared ingredients to make some of Kendrick's favorite dishes, soft and easy to eat. But Daniel and his family are late.
What?
For a moment, I wondered if Kendrick had mistaken Tarek's name for Daniel's, but it seemed Daniel's family was indeed invited. When I asked Tarek if he knew, he replied,
Of course. I contacted them. And Alice is bringing some dishes too. What?
Knowing that Alice wasn't a great cook, I let out a strange noise in surprise. Once, I had advised her about the strong flavor of Ruby's baby food. She had been quite upset about it. Maybe that's why she never made homemade baby food again. I reflected that perhaps it was my fault for saying too much. We're late. As I reminisced, I heard Daniel's voice. He was with Alice and Ruby.
Oh, Daniel. I'm glad you came.
Kendrick, who was very fond of his grandson, welcomed Daniel's family warmly.
Ruby, it's been a while. Shall we go to the kitchen with Grandma?
The unpleasant memory from a month ago crossed my mind, but I was happy to see Ruby and spoke to her. Grandma, are you using the hand cream I gave you?
Of course. Look, my hands are so soft thanks to you, Ruby.
I showed Ruby the back of my hand and thanked her. Her innocent smile was soothing.
Margaret, it's been a while. Oh, Alice, it has been a while. Thank you for coming to the celebration today.
This isn't your celebration, so you don't need to thank me.
Well, but thank you for making some dishes too. I'll plate them up. Good job. I didn't make it for you, Margaret.
Ignoring my feelings, Alice's voice always came with a hint of bitterness. Hearing her tone, the relatives already seated in the dining room froze. Let sleeping dogs lie. I took Ruby's hand and started cooking in the kitchen. The dining table was already set with celebratory dishes, but Kendrick had specifically requested beef stew, so I made it.
Ruby, sit with Mom and Dad.
Once the dish was done, I took off my apron and gently pushed Ruby towards the dining room. Kendrick and the others were already enjoying drinks. To be celebrated at this age. It's something. Kendrick's hearty laughter filled the room. I wished Tracy could have been there too. Wiping my eyes, I took a seat at the end of the table. Tarek looked happy, drinking with Daniel after a long time. As the celebration went on and Kendrick made his speech, the party reached its peak. Which one is Margaret's beef stew? Kendrick, remembering, looked around the table.
Isn't it this one? It's delicious. I've been thinking it was this one all along. Am I wrong?
An older relative held up a plate.
Thank you. Did you enjoy it? Unfortunately, that's not Margaret's cooking. It's something I made at home.
Alice, her face flushed, answered proudly. Whether out of shyness or drunkenness, Alice's voice was loud and boastful.
Oh, Margaret and this daughter-in-law are both beautiful and great cooks.
The relative's voice made everyone nod in agreement. They had been afraid of Alice's outburst earlier, but now they were praising her. The power of alcohol is incredible.
Grandma's cooking is over here.
Amid the noise, Ruby placed my beef stew on each table. She must have brought the plated dishes from the kitchen.
Alice, help yourself. Margaret's cooking is always delicious.
Kendrick placed a plate in front of Alice. Alice made a blatant face of disgust. She glanced at the plate and then at me, pinching her nose.
No, thank you. I don't eat homemade food made by a dropout who can only do caregiving jobs.
It's filthy.
What?
Alice's words seemed to sober everyone up, and they all froze, stopping their meals.
Food made by dirty people belongs in the trash.
Everyone was shocked by her next words. Alice stood up and, in front of all the relatives, threw the stew into the dining room trash can.
Margaret's seasoning is too strong. Everyone, this kind of food will make you sick. And it's made by hands that have touched dirty things. I hope you don't get food poisoning.
Was this her revenge for my comment about the strong seasoning years ago? Or was it for keeping our dropout status a secret? Apologize to all caregivers across the country, no, the world. I was more furious at Alice for mocking caregiving work than at her for throwing away my dish. At that moment,
Mom, it's great that everyone said your cooking was delicious.
Ruby, shyly looking at Alice, spoke up. She's at an age where she wants to brag about her mom. In this tense atmosphere, the relatives acted maturely. The old woman and old man nodded at Ruby's words.
I bought it at the deli yesterday. What? I thought I recognized the taste.
An old woman, whose daughter worked at the deli, said with a bitter smile. She probably thought she could look down on us country folks. We go to delis too. Alice didn't expect to be outed by Ruby. Alice's face turned red as she clenched her teeth.
Mom, you're as red as a monkey. Ruby, don't laugh.
Alice glared at Ruby, raising her voice. In front of so many people, she wouldn't lay a hand on her like last time.
And about the food you're eating. What? Ruby, did you do something?
Alice grabbed Ruby's shoulder, shaking her as she laughed, her hand over her mouth.
The potatoes fell on the floor. I picked them up and washed them, so it's okay, right, Mom?
Ruby laughed, even as she apologized. The reason was clear. She was laughing, remembering the potatoes rolling on the floor.
Gross, I already ate it.
Poor thing. The relatives felt sympathy, but Daniel couldn't hold back his laughter and gave Ruby a thumbs up.
Good job, Ruby. What? Don't joke around.
Maybe it was the humiliation of being laughed at in front of everyone, but Alice finally snapped, yelling at Daniel. The celebration of Kendrick's 100th birthday turned into a battleground for a couple's quarrel, and the relatives turned pale. Then their faces turned red with anger.
You're the one joking around. How could you do this at a celebration? And belittling Margaret's job is the worst. You might need a caregiver someday too. Caregiving is a licensed profession. Don't you know that, Ms. Elite? And besides, we are all upset that we couldn't eat Margaret's cooking. Get out!
Voices of criticism poured in from the relatives. A storm of harsh words against Alice. No, it was that her self-centered nature had been exposed all along. It was her own fault. Daniel confirmed this.
Divorce. I've put up with your selfishness for 10 years. Throwing away Mom's cooking is unforgivable. I was looking forward to it.
This country cooking.
Deli items are much better for hospitality. What did you say? My grandma always said, never waste food. Apologize to Grandma in heaven and Mom.
Hearing Daniel's words, I felt a warmth in my heart. I was grateful to Tracy for raising such a kind son. But Alice was unmoved by Daniel's words. She didn't calm down. Instead, she became more furious.
I said I don't want to. I'm done with you. I've had enough. How am I supposed to live if we get divorced? I didn't go to a good university just to be bossed around. That's why I don't want a divorce.
Alice stomped her feet and cried out, hating the idea of working. It wasn't about the type of job, she just hated working altogether. As Alice continued to cry, Kendrick, who had been silent, finally spoke up.
Accept it. Heaven helps those who help themselves. It means that those who don't rely on others but try to carve their own path will be helped and blessed by heaven. You're still young, so keep trying.
Alice hung her head at Kendrick's words, which he said while clicking his dentures. Of course, I, and the whole family, applauded. Here's what happened afterward. Daniel made Alice sign a pledge, promising that if she ever caused trouble again, they would divorce immediately. He stuck that pledge on the fridge, and it seems to have worked because they haven't divorced yet, even a year later. Kendrick's words seemed to touch her deeply, and she even started a part-time job. However, her work history was short, and her habit of looking down on people made her useless at any job. She would snap at senior workers trying to teach her and quit after 3 days. Her stress from not being successful at anything led to a resurgence of her hysterics. Daniel then gave her an ultimatum about divorce. Honestly, I think a divorce might be better for Ruby. As for me, I continue to work hard in caregiving. Looking back, I might have started this job out of a sense of guilt towards my mother-in-law, Tracy. Maybe it was me who was overly focused on education. But now, I have a different motivation for going to work.
Margaret, thank you so much. Seeing your smile gives me strength.
The joy of contributing to someone's life is what drives me to my job. Margaret, thank you for everything. I remembered Tracy's words and felt grateful from the bottom of my heart.
Margaret, you'll have 5 years of experience in another year. Have you thought about taking the care manager exam? I don't think I can do it. I have the energy, but I dropped out of high school. No, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll give it a try. Margaret, you're always attentive and understand people's needs well. I think you'd be great at it.
Blushing at my colleague's praise, I felt a surge of determination. I still have a lot of life ahead of me. Kendrick's words give me a push. Grandma, good luck with your studies. The monthly visits from Ruby and the support from Daniel strengthen my resolve. There's a small camera in the room, right next to the bed. My daughter Scarlett whispers in a hushed voice. She's now a high school student. Scarlett clings tightly to me, and I'm at a loss for words, so I just hold her close. Dad. Desperately trying to figure out what to do, I call out to my husband Liam, who is also frozen stiff beside me. Startled by my voice, Liam gently strokes Scarlett's head and quietly heads to her room, careful not to make any footsteps. As Scarlett's trembling subsides while I continue to hold her, Liam emerges from her room. He beckons me and Scarlett with a wave of his hand and nods with a grave expression next to the bed.
Well, we can't make any plans for the weekend. It's supposed to be a nice camping trip.
Liam's words, spoken with an unnaturally bright voice and a forced smile, send chills down my spine. He quietly shows me and Scarlett the screen of his smartphone and continues.
Look, here. It's a campground we haven't been to yet, right? Sounds exciting.
However, there are no websites or social media posts about the campground on Liam's smartphone. Instead, there's only a draft screen for a text message. Seeing the words written there, Scarlett grabs my arm.
We're being watched and listened to. So, play along.
You're right. I'm so looking forward to it.
I can only raise my voice in a high-pitched tone to mask my trembling voice. My name is Olivia. I'm a 50-year-old saleswoman at a sporting goods store. I've loved being active since I was a child. I met Liam through my hobby of camping. He was there when I went on a trip with my friends. Normally, my friends and I can easily pitch a tent, but on this particular morning, the wind was strong, and we were having trouble getting the tent up. Liam, who is now my husband, was the one who approached us, taking pity on our struggles. He and his group had also come camping. We were a group of 4 women, and Liam's group consisted of 4 men. One of my friends hit it off with one of Liam's group members and invited them to join us for a barbecue. That's how we became close. I liked him from the moment I first spoke to him, and he later told me that he had taken a liking to me from the first time we met. From then on, our group and his group became friends who would go camping together. On the night of our 3rd camping trip, while gazing at the star-filled sky,
I want us to date with the intention of getting married,
Liam said to me. After that, we started dating and got married without any issues a year later. Our marriage was blessed by our parents, and there were no objections. After getting married, there were various changes, such as me transferring to a sporting goods store and Liam switching from being a police officer to a sports trainer, but our family remained close-knit. Even more pleasing was that I was able to build a good relationship with Liam's family as well. Liam's brother John also loved the outdoors, and we became so close that we would go camping together a few times a year. After getting married, I had fewer opportunities to go camping with friends, so I genuinely enjoyed camping with Liam and John. I got married at 27, and I'll be turning 34 soon. We had always wanted children since getting married, but we weren't blessed with any for a long time. I think we might need to consider fertility treatments soon.
You're right. Even though we're in good shape, we're 34. It might be time to seriously think about it.
Indeed. If it doesn't work out next time, let's get tested at the hospital.
Okay. I'll support you in this.
We decided to consider fertility treatments as an option. However, just then, I was able to get pregnant naturally. And I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, whom we named Scarlett. As the long-awaited first grandchild, Scarlett was adored by the whole family as she grew up. Despite being spoiled, she didn't grow up to be selfish, which was a relief. Scarlett seemed to be very fond of John, who looked young for his age. I was worried that I might struggle with raising my first child. But those concerns were unnecessary. It was all thanks to my family, who helped with raising Scarlett. I didn't suffer from postpartum depression and didn't find child-rearing to be difficult. A big part of that was due to John's presence, as he could relate to children at their level. Scarlett always seemed happy when talking to John, and I would watch them with a smile.
John, you're such a great help. Thank you so much, always.
No, don't mention it. I've always loved children, you know.
That's true. John, you were always good at taking care of kids, even when you were little. Our cousins were very fond of you too.
Liam, you remember things from so long ago quite well.
You often gave stuffed animals you won from UFO catchers to our cousins, right? They were all so happy to receive them. I was jealous because you gave the stuffed animals I wanted to our cousins.
Ah, those were the days. I didn't know you got jealous, Liam. Which stuffed animal was it?
There's no need to bring that up now, is there?
I watched as John and Liam chatted merrily. It was clear to see how close Liam and John were. I felt truly blessed to have married him. Not only was I surrounded by a wonderful family, but Liam himself was a kind and amazing person. In the blink of an eye, Scarlett had become a high school student. Around that time, John went on a solo trip. As a souvenir, he bought a stuffed toy of Scarlett's favorite character.
Could you give this to Scarlett for me, Olivia?
Are you sure about such a large stuffed animal?
It's fine, really. I wanted to take Scarlett along with me, but it's difficult to travel with a high school student, you know. Scarlett was a bit upset about it, so I want you to give this to her as an apology.
I handed the large stuffed toy I received from John to Scarlett when she got home from school. This size must be expensive, right? Even the palm-sized version of this plushie is pricey, let alone one you can hug. It probably cost as much as the trip itself.
Is it that expensive? Mom, you really don't know anything. This character is super popular.
I learned the value of the stuffed toy from Scarlett. She adored it so much that she placed it by her pillow, saying she'd sleep with it from now on. The next day, I immediately reported this to John. He seemed delighted that Scarlett was so happy, and left with a huge smile on his face. About a week later, something happened.
Mom! What should I do? You see!
Scarlett came running to Liam and me, looking extremely agitated as we were drinking coffee in the living room. She kept trembling and repeating,
"What should I do?"
I hugged her, trying to calm her down. Calm down, take it slow. After a while, as her shaking subsided, Scarlett muttered in a small voice,
"Mom, Dad, the eyes on that stuffed animal, they're weird. Almost like camera lenses."
The air between Liam and I froze. Scarlett desperately began explaining why she felt that way. That stuffed toy was just given to me by John the other day.
The colors of the eyes are slightly different. I noticed it when I started opening the curtains during the day. I thought maybe it was a special edition or something, so I looked it up online, but...
As Scarlett researched the plushie, she felt the eyes resembled lenses. Upon further searching, she apparently found an article about a case where hidden cameras were installed inside stuffed animals. I hoped it was just Scarlett's misunderstanding, but Liam immediately headed to her room. As a former police officer, he was knowledgeable about wiretapping and hidden camera devices. Leaving the gadgets to him, I started preparing hot cocoa to calm the panicked Scarlett. He once told me about an incident that occurred while we were dating, where a female college student was stalked and cameras were planted in part of her stuffed animal collection. He went to the room with Scarlett to check the stuffed animal and then came back to the living room for a moment. The two of them approached me. Liam started writing something on a memo pad on the table.
Maybe there are listening devices planted not only in the stuffed toy, but also in the living room.
Then, he began drawing a picture on the paper. Apparently, there was a camera hidden in the plushie, and the model seemed to be capable of recording audio as well, as he explained in writing. The camera's footage would be stored on an SD card, and although we couldn't verify it now, there was a possibility that Scarlett's figure in the room might be captured. And since the culprit would likely come to retrieve that SD card, Liam wrote on the paper that he wanted our cooperation. Scarlett and I looked at each other in surprise, but nodded. Then Liam started jotting down lines on the memo pad. He told us to speak these lines towards the camera. Liam, Scarlett, and I went to her room. We intentionally began speaking in clear voices so the small camera's microphone could pick it up.
That's right. Scarlett, you're looking forward to the family camping trip this weekend, aren't you?
Yeah. It's been a while, so I'm excited. Oh, but Dad, didn't you say the lock on the back door by the kitchen was broken?
They told us to wait until the week after next for that, remember? Right, Olivia?
That's right. But I'm worried about leaving the door unlocked when we go out.
It'll be fine. Our parents live nearby. They'll call the police if anything happens. Besides, none of us will be home.
You're right. We've got to enjoy the camping trip since we're going. We purposefully spoke in exaggerated, excited voices. The bit about the kitchen back door lock being broken was a complete lie. However, we decided to deliberately leave the key in to let the perpetrator into the house.
Oh, right. This stuffed animal is a character you like, isn't it, Scarlett? My friend said she got it from a claw machine. Would you display it together? Yeah. I really love this one. I'm so happy. I'll sleep with it starting tonight.
That's great. Dad will put it up for you. Liam pretended to place another stuffed toy in front of the small camera while retrieving the one with the camera and putting it in a box.
What exactly are you planning to do?
I'm going to hand it over to an acquaintance to have a look.
But won't the culprit notice if there's no camera?
It'll be fine. I'll have them handle it skillfully.
You're giving it to someone you know from your police officer days, right? Then there's no need to worry.
Yeah. It'll be all right. We have to find out who did this. Well, I'm off.
Liam, could it be that person, maybe?
It might be. Well, even without investigating, we'll have an answer by the weekend. Anyway, I'm taking this with me. Liam immediately contacted his former colleagues from the police force and took the stuffed animal with him. A while later, Liam returned home. It seemed that the results wouldn't be available right away. In the meantime, they assured him that the video would keep streaming smoothly. Then the weekend arrived. Today was the day of the camping trip we had deliberately discussed in front of the hidden camera. Fortunately, Scarlett was absent due to her high school club activities. Liam and I were waiting for the culprit to show up. After a while, we heard the sound of a door opening near the back of the house. The footsteps slowly approached Scarlett's room. Liam and I were lying in wait next to her room, anticipating the perpetrator's arrival. When we confirmed that the culprit's footsteps were right outside her room, Liam and I burst out. There, we saw John trying to enter her room.
John! What the hell are you doing here?
Upon seeing John, Liam, shaking with anger, immediately grabbed him by the collar and raised his fist.
Why are you here? I thought you went camping.
John tried to resist, using both hands to break free from Liam's grip. Seeing this, all I could do was clench my trembling hands. I couldn't believe that he was really the culprit. Although the stuffed toy was from him, maybe he was just being used and there was another perpetrator. I was holding on to a sliver of hope that John had been unknowingly coerced into cooperating. Unlike his usual kind expression, John's face was cruel and cold as he struggled to escape Liam's grasp.
Don't mess with me. Why would you do something so horrible?
Spare me the lecture. It's too much of a hassle. Enraged by John's unrepentant attitude, Liam punched him with all his might. Struck by him, who regularly trained his body, John collapsed onto the hallway floor as if he had been thrown. However, he immediately got up and started running towards the front door, prompting Liam to tackle him.
Don't you dare run away.
Pinned down by him, John let out a sound like a frog being crushed. Liam and I worked together to tie John's hands and feet with duct tape as he lay there. Finally unable to move, John let out a low growl and clicked his tongue loudly.
John, explain why you did this.
Liam questioned coldly. John averted his gaze and shut his mouth. But as Liam gradually applied more pressure to his arms, John started rambling as if he had given up.
I couldn't stand the fact that you got married before me, had an adorable daughter, and built a happy family. That's why I took care of Scarlett, to steal the position of father from you. And then she grew attached to me, she was just so cute.
Liam gasped at John's resentful words. Perhaps getting excited, John's voice grew louder.
And then that cute girl became a high school student, looking all sexy, and she's clinging to me, you know? Of course, I'd get excited. I don't want to miss a single second of her turning into a woman. Stop it!
Liam shouted, restraining John, who was spitting as he yelled. Seeing Liam's trembling hands, John snorted.
But you know, I haven't done anything yet. I haven't forced a relationship on her or made any sexual demands. And yet, you only use me for childcare, and now that Scarlett is of age, you're going to treat me like a pervert? How convenient for you.
Gripping Liam's clenched fists, I glared at John.
It's true that you helped us a lot when Scarlett was little, and we appreciated that. But that's a separate issue. Just because you took care of her since she was young, does that make it okay to secretly record and listen in on her if you don't force a relationship? Of course not. Regardless of age, hidden cameras and wiretapping are crimes.
As I spoke calmly in a low voice, John frowned in displeasure.
Don't come near Scarlett ever again.
I was truly relieved that she wasn't here right now. I didn't want her to know that the older man she had adored was capable of making such an ugly face.
Don't ever come near my family again. From today onward, I no longer consider you my brother.
Yeah, I get it. John spat out, seemingly in defiance.
I can't trust just a verbal promise. Stay right there and wait. Even if you don't tell me, I have nowhere to go because of you, so of course, I have no choice but to wait.
Liam angrily went downstairs to the living room and, using his intuition as a former police officer, immediately contacted his colleagues. He asked them to investigate the school where John worked as a security guard right away. They had also been examining the stuffed animal he had given them the other day. His colleague asked if the culprit was the same person as the one who planted the camera in the plushie, and Liam confirmed it was. The colleague promptly headed to John's workplace. 2 hours later, Liam's smartphone rang. It was revealed that hidden cameras were installed in the girls' bathrooms at John's school. Security footage showed John repeatedly entering the girls' restroom carrying a small camera. They informed Liam that they had collected fingerprints from the camera and planned to conduct DNA testing. John was taken in for voluntary questioning by the police Liam had called.
Must feel nice to have your brother turned into the police by his own younger brother. I'm miserable because I have such a perfect little brother. You must be thrilled that your older brother might get arrested, huh?
John taunted, but Liam just stared at him without saying a word. His colleagues from the police came to pick John up, and Liam headed to the police station. I stayed at home, waiting for Scarlett alone. In the evening, Scarlett returned from her club activities.
Scarlett, you won't be able to see John anymore.
I immediately told her those words. Scarlett's expression darkened, as if she had realized something. I hugged her and tried to comfort her. I had relied on John since she was little, and I felt so guilty towards Scarlett that I couldn't say anything. After a while, Liam returned from the police, and we decided to go out for dinner as a family of 3. When we went to eat, Scarlett regained a bit of her energy and smiled at us. Liam and I felt a little relieved. 3 days passed since then. Liam's colleague contacted us and informed us that John's fingerprints matched the DNA found on the small camera inside the stuffed animal and the ones installed in the women's restroom.
So it really was John after all.
I see. I had no idea he resented you so much.
I didn't notice either. But what he did to Scarlett is unforgivable.
He seemed unable to contain his anger. It was decided that John would be formally arrested on charges of illegal filming. When his house was searched, evidence was found that he had repeatedly committed voyeurism in the past. It was determined that there was no need to consider any sympathy or mitigating factors for his criminal actions, and he was expected to receive a prison sentence. Liam and I decided to claim compensation and have a restraining order issued to keep John away from Scarlett. Once everything was settled, Liam and I headed to his parents' house.
Liam, I'm truly sorry for raising John to become such a person. Olivia, I'm so sorry to you as well.
Liam's father, Thomas, apologized profusely. "It's not your fault, Dad." "I didn't notice either."
We've cut ties with John and told him he's never allowed in our house again. Olivia, we'll do whatever we can to make amends.
"It's not your fault, Thomas and Jennifer." I smiled at my in-laws. My in-laws apologized repeatedly, saying,
"I'm sorry."
But I had no intention of blaming them. I left my in-laws' house together with Liam. It seems he squandered his money on buying filming equipment and has no savings. He'll probably have to work long hours after getting out of prison.
He'll have to pay compensation to us and others as well.
Even a lifetime wouldn't be enough to make up for it.
I wonder if Thomas and Jennifer will have to pay reparations too. That might be the case. Even though I knew that could happen, I still couldn't forgive him.
Liam let out a big sigh. I was a bit anxious too. I hoped it wouldn't cause trouble for Liam and his parents. 3 months passed since then. At the time of the incident, Scarlett had been scared of men, but winning the school band competition and making fun memories with friends on the school trip seemed to have helped heal her emotional wounds.
I'm so glad. It looks like she is feeling better.
Yes, thanks to her classmates.
You're right. I don't think she could have become this cheerful with just us.
The power of friendship is amazing, isn't it? Now, she is energetically engaging in club activities and studies every day. Amidst all this, it was time to start thinking about her path after high school graduation. Liam and I had decided to move before John was released from prison. "Dad, Mom, I want to go to college out of state. Is that okay?"
Of course it's okay. But if you're going out of state, we want to come with you. What do you think, Scarlett? I'm so happy. Let's all go together as a family. I think we can have a great time even in a new place. So, what kind of house would make you excited to come home to?
Would you be mad if I said I prefer a condominium instead of a single-family home?
Would you think, but we're already living in a house?
Of course not. I wouldn't think that. I'm sure Dad wouldn't either. But why do you prefer a condominium?
In a condominium, it'll be easier to tell when you two come home, right?
I'll know too, so that would make me happy. Although her wounds had started to heal, I could tell she was still a bit scared. That's why my in-laws and my parents said it might be better for us to move. There's no point in dwelling on a dark future. Life in a new place is bound to be more enjoyable than now. Scarlett and I had a fun conversation imagining our new life. She said she would talk about her future plans at school tomorrow. Scarlett is a stronger and brighter kid than we thought. For her sake, I want to move forward with a positive attitude.
Wait a minute. You stupid wife. Remember this.
Of course, I have no intention of remembering. Behind me, a noisy woman is clutching her stomach and desperately shouting at me, but I don't care. Besides, this is the first time I've run this hard since becoming an adult. Come to think of it, I was pretty fast on my feet during my school days. That thought crossed my mind. I'm out of breath and it's hard, but strangely, I feel exhilarated. I'm free from now on. My name is Lisa. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. I work in the administrative department of a major corporation. It's not that I have high expectations, but before I knew it, I was not just in my 30s but almost in my 40s. It's not that I don't want to get married, but as my years of service have increased, thankfully so has my salary, and I can live alone if necessary. However, there are times when I feel lonely.
It seems like it's time to seriously consider getting a cat.
While lost in thought during work.
Lisa, you're daydreaming again during work. It's not a good example for your subordinates.
Ryan, a salesperson from a client company, peeked at my face and spoke to me. He's about the same age as me, but looks so young that he could pass for his 20s. My colleagues also said he was handsome.
Spring makes me sleepy.
Let me guess, you ate too much lunch? We've known each other for a long time, so we can joke like this. Watching our interaction, some colleagues teased us, suggesting we should date. I just brushed it off, but then an unexpected event happened.
Lisa, I want you to marry me.
Ryan, who had been waiting for me at the exit after work, suddenly asked me out for a meal. I thought it was his usual joke, especially since we had been drinking, but it seemed he was serious. To be honest, I was a little interested in him, so I was happy to hear that. I asked him to wait a bit for my answer, and then I formally accepted. After we started dating, I began calling him Ryan by his first name. He always brought up new topics and was a great conversationalist, typical of the top salesperson. Since we knew each other from before, we never really had a big fight, and 6 months into the relationship, he proposed to me at a place with a beautiful night view. Of course, I said yes. Little did I know that this man would turn out to be incredible in ways I never imagined. After getting married, my husband was transferred to a department with more business trips.
The salary will be higher, and we'll have a more comfortable life.
I wanted him to stay by my side, but it seemed he had long wished for this transfer, and he was happy about moving to his desired department. He was away from home for half of the month, and even though we were newlyweds,
maybe I should really get a cat.
I started to seriously consider it. Having lived alone for a long time, I had no trouble spending time by myself. With my husband away, there was no need to cook elaborate meals. There were days when I just made simple dishes for dinner. The married life I had imagined when I was single was far different from reality, leaving me feeling a bit empty. My husband earned well, but as we didn't have children, I felt there was nothing for me to do at home, so I continued working.
Aren't you going to have kids?
At a drinking party, a colleague with children sympathetically asked me, but I just laughed it off with a haha. I wanted children sooner rather than later, considering my age, but it seemed my husband felt differently. He said he wanted to cherish our time as a couple, which made me a bit happy, but I also felt anxious. Someone who trampled on my feelings like this intruded. One day, as usual, my husband was on a business trip, and I was quietly having a drink alone when the doorbell rang. Seeing the person on the screen, I couldn't help but let out a sound. I couldn't just ignore it, so I let the person into my room.
Please call before you come, Mia. How many times do I have to tell you?
not sure if my reluctance showed on my face. "You always look so gloomy, Lisa."
Oh, Ryan is not home again? You guys aren't young anymore. Shouldn't you be more worried about having kids?
The one who would say such rude things so nonchalantly was my husband's mother, Mia. She barged into the room and finished off the bottle of wine I had opened. Then, without asking, she opened the refrigerator.
Oh, there's some expensive-looking meat.
"I can take this, right, Lisa?" It was an A5 grade steak I had bought as a treat for myself to cook the next day. Mia, my mother-in-law, would come to our house and pester me for things.
What? No, of course not.
I realized my mistake the moment I said it. Mia's face turned sour quickly.
Huh? Living a life of luxury with my son's earnings, and you can't even share a bit? Sit down.
Once she started, Mia was unstoppable, lecturing me endlessly. She would go on and on about how she raised her son with care, how she was strict to get him into a top university. She detailed the expenses of getting her son through college. Mia said these things, but I heard that it was my father-in-law who worked hard and earned money while Mia had always been a housewife. Maybe her frugality contributed to that. I've been subjected to this talk annoyingly many times. I've tried pretending not to be home, but she would knock on the door until I came out. Sometimes, I had to call my father-in-law to come and get her. Every time I saw him, he looked tired.
Come on, let's go home. Enough is enough.
Watching Mia being dragged away by him, I deeply realized that marriage isn't always about happiness. By the way, the steak was bought with my own money. As if I'd give it to Mia. Every time she appeared, I was glad we weren't living together. Then, one day it happened. I was relaxing on the sofa, sipping coffee on my day off, when…
What? What did you just say?
I couldn't hide my shock at my husband's words.
I said, divorce. My parents, they got divorced.
Tying his tie, my husband told me calmly. According to him, my father-in-law's anger towards Mia finally reached its limit. Of course, Mia refused the divorce. In the end, it turned into quite a battle, each hiring lawyers. The amount Mia demanded for the divorce was much higher than the norm, but my father-in-law agreed to it just to get away from Mia. My father-in-law's family was wealthy, and he himself was an executive of a large company. With that, Mia must have gotten quite a sum.
He always looked so worn out. It's good he's free from Mia now.
As I was thinking this, my husband said,
So, the house was Dad's, and he's already put it on the market.
What will Mia do now?
As I was thinking, the doorbell rang. Not Mia again, I thought, but my guess was wrong. A uniformed delivery person stood there. I thought it was a courier and opened the door, but Mia was there with the delivery person. Confused.
Where should we take the stuff?
The delivery person asked, and Mia barged in. Please take it to the back room, she said. Thanks for agreeing to live together, Ryan.
You're such a wonderful son of mine.
I was completely left out. In no time, the spare room, which had been used for storage, was filled with her belongings, and it was transformed into Mia's living space.
What? I haven't heard anything about this. I can't just accept sudden cohabitation.
If it were the kind Mia, it wouldn't be a problem. But this Mia was different. As I desperately refused, both of them looked at me with puzzled faces.
Isn't it all the same whether we live together now or in the future? You'll take care of Mom then, Lisa.
My husband said such an absurd thing. Apparently, taking care of Mia was a foregone conclusion for me.
Absolutely not. This is ridiculous.
I'll divorce. This is crazy. Stop making fun of me.
To this, they both started laughing at me as if I was a joke. Divorce? Try it. You'll be the pathetic one, you know? You should be thankful I even married a leftover like you. Hit with such harsh words, I felt everything go dark before my eyes. My husband said he married me for his social status. As he got older, more people around him were married, and marriage was a status symbol in society. He chose me because of my decent looks and good reputation, and he thought I seemed obedient, he said with a laugh at the end.
I'll never sign the divorce papers. Well, I'm off on a business trip again, so I'm leaving now.
Saying this, he left the house humming, leaving behind both me and the detested Mia. Watching me stand there dumbfounded, Mia said,
"How pitiful, a woman unloved by men."
She retorted, laughing at me.
"You're one to talk, having been divorced yourself."
That's what I said. Mia screamed, but I couldn't afford to waste my energy on this woman. I locked myself in my room, pondering how to get a divorce in my favor. I searched the internet, but my husband hadn't done anything particularly wrong. At most, he had the crazy Mia.
Not even cheating.
As I thought this, Mia banged on my room door so fiercely I thought it would break.
Come on! Get out here now!
Wondering what was happening, I came out to find several delicious-looking dishes on the table. Thinking Mia had prepared the meal, I sat down.
Well, she's a bit nice after all.
Just then.
Hey! What are you sitting down for? Pay up!
I looked where Mia was pointing and saw a confused delivery man at the door. Dumbfounded by Mia's stupidity, I said,
"I won't pay for it."
Then I returned to my room and locked the door. She screamed outside for a while, but eventually quieted down. Seems like she paid for it herself. Good. From then on, Mia and I hardly exchanged words. I've heard of married couples living like strangers, but what was this relationship? I even thought about such trivial matters. My husband's visits home became even less frequent, and when he did come home, he and Mia would be having a party-like time. I was quietly preparing for divorce. The more I researched, the more shocking secrets about my foolish husband came to light. He was truly Mia's son. A real piece of work. Mia never cooked, relying on delivery for every meal. And she ordered a lot. Given her large size, it made sense. Once, I prepared a meal for Mia, but she threw it away, plate and all. When I found it, I was so frustrated I cried. Mia had always been stingy with money since the beginning of our marriage. Extremely reluctant to spend more than necessary. She had no problem coveting others' belongings. Once, after a bath, I was eating ice cream when she barged in unannounced.
"I'll take one of those,"
she said, and shamelessly ate one of the 2 ice creams in the package. A greedy and unpleasant person. I continued this life for nearly a year. Although Mia and I were living together, we barely saw each other, so it wasn't too hard. I considered moving out, but I didn't want to be seen as running away. More than that, the thought of the 2 of them falling into hell made me giddy.
"Mia."
One day, when I suddenly spoke to her, Mia involuntarily shuddered.
"What do you want? How about we go out for dinner together? Unlimited high-end lobster. Plus, it's unlimited time right now."
At my suggestion, Mia, always eager for a meal, was immediately interested.
"I'll go, but you're paying, right?"
As always, she was presumptuous, but I answered with a smile.
Of course.
Once Mia knew it was on me, she began ordering one dish after another at the restaurant.
"I'll take 5 servings of premium lobster, same for shrimp and scallops."
And then, like a black hole, Mia devoured the meat continuously. Other customers glanced and whispered, laughing at her.
"I get it. She's practically a cow herself.
Here's where my plan hit a snag. I intended to leave Mia at the restaurant and return home early, but she protested.
Eating alone is embarrassing.
That's what she said.
I think you're embarrassing enough already.
In the end, Mia, taking advantage of the unlimited time offer, silently ate meat for 3 hours. She even ate the meat I grilled, leaving me with only about 5 pieces. After 3 hours of that, when it was time to pay, the server said with a forced smile, "We look forward to seeing you again." But his eyes weren't smiling. He probably hoped never to see such a customer again.
Well, that was an okay restaurant.
I was infuriated that her first comment was that, after eating and drinking on someone else's dime. I was thinking of where to take her next when suddenly,
ouch!
Mia collapsed, sweating profusely, and in obvious pain.
What happened?
Are you giving birth?
Don't joke at a time like this.
The cause of her stomach pain was obvious. In extreme pain, Mia panicked.
Hurry, this is serious. Call an ambulance, quickly.
I thought the real problem was her head and stomach, but to avoid further embarrassment from her loud cries, I did as she said and called an ambulance. Fortunately, it arrived in about 15 minutes. By then, Mia had quieted down, but she was crouching and holding her stomach in pain.
What happened?
The paramedic asked.
My stomach hurts.
Mia could barely speak.
We'll take her to a nearby hospital.
Are you her daughter?
Son's wife? Please come with us.
The paramedic asked me, but I replied.
Son's wife?
No.
I know her, but she's practically a stranger now. I think her stomach pain is because she ate meat nonstop for 3 hours at that lobster place.
I explained emotionlessly.
3 hours. I see.
The paramedic's face twisted in disbelief.
Well, I have urgent matters to attend to, so I'll leave now. Her son is around, so please contact him.
I said and ran off as fast as I could. From behind,
Wait! You stupid wife, remember this!
I heard Mia shout, but of course, I had no intention of remembering. I hurried home. When I arrived, the movers I had arranged were there too, and I left the house with my packed belongings. A few hours later, my mobile phone was bombarded with calls from my husband. The hospital must have contacted him.
Hey Lisa! What are you doing? Mom is in trouble.
What am I doing now? I'm sitting on my new sofa, elegantly drinking coffee. I retorted.
Don't joke! I came home and your stuff is gone, and there's a divorce petition. I'll never sign it.
My husband was furious, but I said,
Then it'll be through lawyers. You should receive the official documents soon. You have plenty of women, so it shouldn't be a problem, right?
As I laughed, he whispered,
Huh.
in a small voice. I had hired a detective agency to gather information on my husband for a favorable divorce. And what a surprise! One evidence after another came out. I quickly found out about a woman he was involved with in Chicago. Just as I thought that was it, there was a woman in Los Angeles, then New Orleans, and recently Denver. The number was so high that my female lawyer and I joked.
Where do you think the next one will be?
I bet Atlanta. We even had the luxury to guess the next affair location. After all this, gathering evidence against him took a lot of time and money, but thinking about him going to hell made it all seem worth it. I hated my husband that much. I didn't leave that house because I wanted to save on rent. It was also a part of my small pride, a determination not to lose. I planned to demand a security deposit for the divorce lawsuit from all the women involved, but it turned out my husband had pretended to be single. I thought he was the lowest of the low. However, one of the women he deceived reported his misdeeds to the company where he worked. As a result, he was demoted to a minor subsidiary and, with his pride wounded, he quit the company. It seemed the matter with the women was settled through settlements. I heard it cost a pretty penny. I thought, serves him right, from the bottom of my heart. Eventually, our divorce was successfully finalized. I made sure he paid the full amount I had asked for the divorce security deposit. The source of the money? He had to sell his stocks and savings from before we were married, and it still wasn't enough. Most of it was paid by Mia, my ex-mother-in-law. Despite receiving a substantial amount from her ex-husband during their divorce, it seemed she had nearly run out of money. She must have been shocked to see her son in such a mess after she got out of the hospital. Good riddance. By the way, Mia's stomach pain turned out to be appendicitis, not food poisoning. Seems like her stomach is just as unbelievable as ever. Mia always focused on academic credentials, but I thought she should have taught her son other important lessons. As for my ex-husband, his final choice of woman was, disgustingly, a colleague from my workplace. It was the same married colleague who kept nagging me. "Aren't you going to have kids?" Having an affair with someone else's husband while being married herself, how foolish. I made sure to demand a security deposit from her. But this colleague hadn't realized she was just one of many, and their relationship ended quickly. It seems she got divorced too. Once, on my way to work, I saw my ex-husband and Nia in shabby clothes. The once handsome man had lost his hair due to stress, looking like a defeated samurai. Almost unrecognizable, appearing in his 50s. Mia, once so plump, had lost a lot of weight. They both looked like they were living on the streets. It was none of my business. As for me, I continued working but requested a transfer to an affiliate company. Thankfully, my take-home pay remained the same, and I continued my previous lifestyle. One thing has changed. When I come home and say, "I'm back," two adorable cats come to greet me, twining around my feet.
Wait a bit, I'll feed you soon.
A friend was looking for a home for two sibling cats, and I finally got my long-desired pets. For them, I moved to a pet-friendly apartment. Every day is now a storm of affection. For now, I've had enough of marriage. I plan to spend my days happily with these cute cats.
Your cooking makes me want to vomit.
Flora, my son's wife, whispered this only for me to hear, but I ignored it. Today is my grandson Frederick's birthday party, and we're planning to celebrate it grandly with relatives invited. I didn't want to be swayed by just Flora's opinion. Without minding her, I carried a large platter with meatloaf next. Seeing this, Flora stood up and started yelling loudly.
Seriously, what is this? You expect us to eat that? Such tasteless, vulgar food, I don't want to eat it. I've had enough.
Flora grabbed the large platter of meatloaf from my hands and slammed it onto the table with force. The relatives looked at Flora with surprised faces. The dish shattered into pieces, and the scattered food stained the clothes of the relatives, who started angrily blaming Flora. My son David also stood up and put his hand on Flora's shoulder to calm her down.
Hey, Flora. Calm down. You be quiet. Why are there so many country bumpkins here? I'm so sick of it. I feel like vomiting. I shouldn't have come.
She then picked up a plate of food left on the table and threw it at me. I felt more disgusted than angry at Flora's behavior.
You seem to be mistaken, but I didn't make this. Huh? Then who made this crap? It was me.
The voice was so loud it seemed impossible it came from an elderly person, and the glass doors shook. I'm Ashley. Born into an ordinary family, I spent my life without any particular incidents. I did well enough in studies, so I didn't have trouble getting into college. In university, surrounded by good friends, I had a fun college life and graduated without issue. I found a job at a local company, and during my busy days, I met the man who would become my husband. It seemed we both had love at first sight. We started dating immediately, and about a month later, decided to get married. My husband was a wonderful person, and I was very proud of him. Our family and friends blessed us, and we had our wedding ceremony without delay, and soon after, I gave birth to our son David. It was my first time parenting, but it wasn't hard because my mother Morgan helped. I thought about how smooth and trouble-free my life had been. But maybe I was getting complacent. Gradually, I began to find life boring. That's when people tend to fall into life's pitfalls. It started when my husband's returns home began to get late. Then his business trips unnaturally increased, and he was away from home more and more. I tried to ignore the doubts swelling in my heart, clinging to the sweet illusion that he wouldn't do such things, but the reality was cruel. I found out he was having affairs with several women. When one of their husbands came to confront him at our home. At first, my husband didn't admit his guilt, but as evidence piled up, he cried like a child. Eventually, we divorced, and I became a single mother, raising David. At that moment, I felt as if my life had ended. I had lived without hardships, never stumbling, so I had no strength to resist. Because I was complacent, I couldn't even consult with friends. I desperately wanted help, but weird pride got in the way. However, parents are there to help in such times. My mother didn't blame or comfort me. She just said,
Ashley, you have me and your friends. But David only has you.
Over the phone. With those words, I resolved to raise David properly. To do that, I decided to throw away all my silly pride, rely on others, and raise David with the help of many people. My son never had serious injuries or illnesses, and his grades were excellent. He went on to high school, the local university, and graduated safely. He got a job in a local company, moved out, and became independent. When I looked around David's empty room, I couldn't help but cry. There was loneliness, but more than that, a sense of accomplishment. But there was one thing I worried about for David. Like me, he had never faced any major failures. If he encountered a significant setback in life, could he endure it? That was my only concern, but I was prepared to support David when the time came. After David became independent, I terminated the house lease and decided to return to my parents' house. It was too big for one person and felt lonely, and with my father passed away, I was worried about my elderly mother being alone. But returning home, I realized my worries were unnecessary. My mother was as energetic as ever, bustling around.
Ashley, if you're bored, get moving. Make some money.
All right, I got it. In this way, it feels more like I'm the one being taken care of by my mother. Still, she seemed happy I came back, and when there was no work, we'd spend time together, reminiscing about the old days. A short while after David became independent, he called me.
Mom, it's been a while. How are ya?
I'm fine, thanks. What's up all of a sudden? Is something wrong? Since David had lived at home and rarely stayed out, having a phone conversation felt somewhat fresh.
I was thinking of spending my summer vacation at home.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Though, don't expect any special treatment. Despite saying that, I was really happy inside. I wanted to ask about his job and how his social relationships were going.
Then, I'll call you again when I'm coming back.
Sure, I'll be looking forward to it. Be careful on your way here. After hanging up, I immediately started planning in my head. The room over there should be fine, but it needs to be cleaned up. And I need to think about what to cook too. As I was talking to myself, my mother approached me.
David's coming back? We'll need to prepare quite a bit then.
My mother seemed motivated knowing her grandson was coming. Mom, he's my son, so I'll do the preparations.
What are you talking about? That boy loves what I make. I absolutely want to make it for him.
Once this happens, my mother won't listen to anything else. We prepared the room so David could relax comfortably and went shopping for groceries. Having something to look forward to is a good thing. It makes the heart light, and somehow, the scenery around seems brighter. And finally, the summer vacation arrived. We went to pick up David from the station and headed home. Seeing David after a long time, he had matured, turning into a full-fledged man. My mother was waiting eagerly at home. We rejoiced at our reunion. The dining table was filled with dishes made by my mother and I. We talked and caught up while eating, and time flew by quickly. When the conversation settled down a bit,
David, have you found someone nice?
My mother suddenly asked. David blushed and looked down. Maybe he really had found someone. The thought made my heart race uncontrollably. David, don't tell me you really have.
Yeah, actually, I've recently started dating someone.
My mother and I were overjoyed and cheered loudly. The conversation then centered around his girlfriend. David, though embarrassed, answered our questions properly. It seems she works at the same company, and they hit it off right away.
Actually, I came back to tell you that. Eventually, I'm thinking of marrying her.
Really? Oh, that makes me so happy.
What a wonderful summer vacation this turned out to be.
Next time, I'll bring her over. I want to introduce her, he said shyly, looking somewhat young to me, reminding me he's always my son. After a delightful summer vacation, half a year later, in winter, it happened. As promised, David brought his girlfriend to our home. The outside was covered in snow, a stark contrast to the summer vacation. My mother and I sat facing David and his girlfriend with serious expressions. All right, this is my girlfriend, Flora. She greeted us.
Nice to meet you. I'm Flora.
Her first impression was of a polite lady. She seemed a bit shy, but her words were careful, and her expression was kind. I liked Flora right away.
Thank you for choosing David.
Well, sure. At first, our conversation was a bit awkward. But after a while, the tension eased, and we all started to enjoy the conversation. Seeing them sitting together, I thought they really suited each other. And so I teased them.
You two really are a good match. Why not get married soon?
But this wasn't a joke. I genuinely thought they should marry. They were embarrassed, but they didn't seem to mind.
No, Mom, if you say so, maybe we should just go ahead and get the marriage certificate now.
Hee hee, shall we go get it now? We joked like this. Then, after a while, the two of them got married. The wedding ceremony was very glamorous, and I felt incredibly happy. But there was a small worry in my heart. For some reason, I kept remembering the time I divorced my husband. Even though I know David's different. And Flora is a wonderful person too. Yet, I couldn't shake off this unpleasant feeling. Contrary to my worries, their married life was going smoothly. Soon, Flora got pregnant and Frederick was born. Being my first grandchild, he was so adorable. Looking at Frederick, I thought my worries were finally disappearing. But it was around that time things started to get strange. After giving birth, Flora somehow started to avoid me. I initially thought it was because she was not feeling well after the birth. Yet, when I tried to help her out,
Ashley! Don't touch Frederick!
She would scream loudly. And not just that. Every time I tried to do something.
Don't! I'll take care of it. Ashley, don't interfere. Why are you doing things on your own? Stop it. Enough is enough.
She would snap at me, leaving me utterly confused. Sure, nobody likes to be meddled with, but her reaction seemed a bit excessive. It felt as if she thought of me as some virus or something, which truly hurt me. So, I decided to distance myself from Flora for a while. I thought she might calm down, and things would return to normal after some time. Time passed, but Flora never contacted me. Despite having my first grandchild, I couldn't hold him. I wanted to see Frederick's face and have a good talk with David and Flora. But they never came to visit me. My mother seemed somewhat concerned too. I thought about calling them myself, but recalling Flora's yelling made it hard for me to gather the courage. However, I couldn't stand it anymore and decided to visit Flora. Of course, I knew showing up at her house without an appointment was rude, but I wanted to see them so badly. I prepared immediately and headed for Flora's house. I knew it was in a residential area near the station, so I drove there, following the map app. It was the middle of summer, and the trees in the park were lush. I reminisced about the summer vacation when David came back. I was happy when I heard about Flora, but I never imagined things would turn out like this. Thoughts of my husband flickered through my mind.
Get out of my head already.
Mumbling to myself, I kept driving. A few minutes later, I arrived at Flora's house. After parking my car in front, I walked towards her house. I could feel my heartbeat, and that's how nervous I was. I pressed the doorbell of Flora's house. After a while, Flora's voice came through the intercom.
Who is it?
Flora, it's me, Ashley. Sorry for showing up unannounced.
I tried to speak gently, hoping not to upset Flora. But such consideration was wasted on Flora. As soon as she heard my voice, she became hostile.
What? Why are you here? I was worried you might be having a hard time. Shut up! Who asked you to come? Leave! But I wanted to see Frederick's face, and… Shut up! Shut up! If you don't leave, I'll call the police.
No matter what I said, Flora wouldn't listen. Fearing she would call the police, I had no choice but to leave. Walking back alone, I headed towards a nearby park. I wanted to see Frederick even for a moment, so I thought of calling Flora to persuade her. It was a hot time in summer, so the park was deserted. I sat on a bench in the shade and called Flora. Hello, Flora?
What is it now? You are creepy.
Please, I just want to talk.
Shut up. There's nothing to talk about.
Flora was hysterical as ever. I tried not to be overwhelmed by her voice, attempting to persuade her.
I just want to spend a little time together.
Give me a break. I'm so fed up. Let me tell you, I've hated you, Ashley, from the start.
Flora threw such harsh words at me, it was hard to believe she was the same person. Hate? Did I do something?
It's your existence. It's just so lonely. That's why you have a divorce history. That's irrelevant, isn't it?
I was outraged, as her words were far too cruel.
Even if you hate me, we're family since you married, aren't we? That's no way to talk. Family? Don't make me laugh. I didn't want to work, so I just wanted to get married quickly and be supported by a husband. It just happened to be David. Oh, stop it. Saying such things, you're the worst, you know? Shut up. Shut up. Don't you ever call me again. Go spend your remaining years in the countryside.
With that, Flora hung up. I couldn't move for a while. Shocked by how terrible she was and angry at myself for not seeing through her, but it was too late for regrets. Feeling down, I left the park, got into my car, and drove home. I thought about contacting David, but I didn't want to burden him with unnecessary worries since he was busy with work. I asked my mother to listen to my complaints. However, I vented to my mother. Time will change things. We just have to trust the person David chose, my mother said reassuringly. So, I decided to be patient. Time passed, and Frederick was about to turn 3. I called David.
David? It's been a while.
Mom, sorry I haven't been in touch. I've been really busy.
It's okay. But I want to see Frederick too, and next month is his birthday, right? I'd love to celebrate it at our house.
Frederick would love that. Let me see if I can arrange some time off. David was unaware of what had happened between me and Flora. So, he readily agreed to my suggestion. I could hear David and Flora talking in the background over the phone. She seemed reluctant to see me. But after some persuasion from David, It sounded like she agreed. Flora's okay with it. So, we'll come over next month.
Great. I'm so happy. Can we invite the relatives too? Make it a big celebration?
Of course. Sorry to trouble you.
No trouble at all. I'll be looking forward to it.
I was thrilled to finally see David and his family, so I immediately shared the news with my mother.
So, they're coming back? Then I'll have to cook up a storm.
My mother said, eager to get started. I enthusiastically contacted relatives to invite them to Frederick's birthday party. Time flew, and soon it was the day of the party. It was spring, and colorful flowers bloomed around our house. As relatives arrived, David's family did too. Frederick, now 3, walked in on his own.
Frederick, nice to meet you. I'm your grandmother.
I bent down to get a good look at Frederick's face. But he seemed frightened by the unfamiliar face and hid behind Flora. Oh dear, I'm sorry. That must have scared you.
Don't worry. He'll get used to it soon.
That's all right. You must be tired. Please, rest inside. David and his family headed to the entrance. All the relatives were smiling. Only Flora was glaring at me. It seemed our silent conflict was ongoing, but I tried not to mind. Especially since Frederick was so adorable. The living room had a large table set up for the gathering of relatives. I brought out the dishes my mother and I had prepared.
Man, it's been a while since I've had Grandma and your cooking. I'm gonna eat a lot.
Frederick looked curiously at the food. But Flora frowned and looked down. As I approached, she whispered so only I could hear.
Just the thought of eating something you made makes me want to vomit.
I was a bit angry, but chose to ignore her. I didn't want to be swayed by just Flora's opinion. Flora seemed even more upset than before for ignoring her, and with a louder voice, she said, "I just don't feel like eating." Then, the relatives looked at Flora with puzzled expressions.
Hey, don't say things like that. Are you tired or something?
David also seemed to feel it was not good, trying to calm Flora down with a joke. Flora turned away with a sullen face. I didn't mind and carried over a large platter with meatloaf on it. Upon seeing this, Flora stood up and began to yell loudly.
What is this? You expect me to eat that?
The relatives looked at Flora in surprise. But she, paying no attention to them, shouted loudly.
I don't want to eat such tasteless, vulgar food. I've had enough.
Flora took the platter of meatloaf from my hands and slammed it onto the table with force. The dish shattered, and the scattered food soiled the clothes of the relatives, who angrily blamed Flora. David stood up, trying to calm Flora by placing his hand on her shoulder. However, she still glared at me.
This is peasant food. It's not fit for humans to eat. It's fish feed. Hey, Flora. Calm down. You be quiet. Why are there so many country bumpkins here anyway? I'm so sick of it. I wish I hadn't come.
She grabbed a plate of food left on the table and threw it at me. Her behavior was far from sane. I felt more creeped out than angry at such a sight of Flora.
It seems you're misunderstanding, but I didn't make this. Huh? Then who made this crap? It was me.
My mother answered loudly to Flora's question.
Really, what's all the fuss about? Ruining a perfectly good meal. Are you even a parent, Flora?
My mother's voice was so loud, it seemed impossible for someone of advanced age, making the glass doors tremble. However, Flora was unyielding.
I don't care who made it. Don't serve such vulgar food. What kind of harassment is this? Listen, this meatloaf is David's favorite. Your behavior is far more rude. Shut up. The vulgar ones are you guys. Ignorant country bumpkins.
Frederick finally reached his limit of tolerance and burst into tears. David hurriedly took Frederick to another room. Yet, Flora didn't care at all. She continued to spout her incomprehensible theories to the relatives. I was truly furious with Flora. Everyone had adjusted their schedules for today, and buying the ingredients cost a significant amount of money. And preparing the meal was also a lot of work. I couldn't forgive Flora for ignoring all these efforts. I slapped Flora hard in earnest. The sound echoed in the room, and Flora, holding her cheek, stared at me in shock. Then my mother shouted,
"I will not accept you as my granddaughter-in-law."
The relatives around probably felt the same, all staring silently at Flora. But Flora became even more hysterical, beyond help. Her eyes bloodshot, spitting saliva, she no longer listened to anyone's voice. Then David ran back, grabbed Flora by the shoulders, and shook her.
"Enough! If you hate it here so much, leave right now."
David must have been thoroughly fed up with Flora's hysteria. Even Flora, regaining her senses, stormed out of the house, got into her car, and drove away with a burst of speed. Afterward, the chaos ensued. We had to clean up the scattered food on the floor. But the angry relatives were still causing a commotion. The birthday party turned into a chaotic situation. However, it was my mother's words that broke the chaos.
"Everyone, be quiet. If you have time to talk, help clean up."
Realizing this, everyone quietly began to clean. Luckily, the damage to the food was minimal, and there was still plenty left, including another platter of meatloaf. Frederick had stopped crying, so he rejoined everyone. Before we started the birthday party again, I deeply apologized to the relatives. "I'm truly sorry, everyone. I apologize for the trouble caused, despite you all gathering here." David also apologized deeply next to me. "Please let me apologize as well. I'm sorry for the rude remarks Flora made." However, no one blamed us. Instead, they praised us for speaking up. I'm really grateful to all the relatives. With our apologies, the matter with Flora was put to rest, and we all enjoyed the meal and chatted happily. Frederick ate his meatloaf with relish, making my mother very pleased. The relatives doted on Frederick, calling his name affectionately. Despite the difficulties, the birthday party ended smoothly, and everyone dispersed. We saw off each relative one by one until only 4 of us were left in the house.
"There's still cleaning up to do, right? Let me help."
"It's okay. You must be worried about Flora. Why don't you head back?" Upon hearing Flora's name, David sighed deeply. "Actually, I've been troubled by Flora's behavior for a while now. I thought she was just tired being postpartum, but it never improved." David gazed at Frederick playing with my mother. After pondering for a while, he finally spoke up. "After this incident, I've made a decision. I need to reevaluate my relationship with Flora. I might even consider divorce." I wasn't surprised at all. In fact, it seemed inevitable to me.
"It can't be helped. I thought I was living a smooth life, and then I got divorced. These things happen in life."
Thinking back on my past made me a bit sad. I worried that because I had divorced, David might end up doing the same. Well, that's true. But what worries me is Frederick. The custody will probably go to Flora.
"There's no use worrying about that. What will be, will be."
David and I looked at each other and smiled. Somehow, an unfounded confidence that everything would work out filled our hearts. Within a month, David and Flora had divorced. I was worried about the custody, but Flora said,
"I don't want him. He'll just get in the way of me remarrying,"
and easily gave up her parental rights. She left David's house and disappeared somewhere. So, her whereabouts are unknown. I decided to move in with David to support him, as he was busy with work. David might remarry someday, but he thought it was better to focus on work for now. My mother stayed at the family home due to old age. However, we make sure to visit the family home several times a year. She looks forward to these visits and seems to be keeping busy. Frederick was lonely for a while after Flora left. But he quickly got used to me, and now he seems very happy. Despite everything, we're living very happy days now.
Did the luggage arrive? My parents are moving in with us starting today. Please take care of them.
What a joke. Those were the first words that came out of him. As if I wasn't angry enough with James already. Just how selfish can James be?
Well, that's that. I'm sure you'll be fine.
I knew what James was up to. He wanted to keep me in check by bringing his parents over while hoping to receive various forms of support himself. Anger surged through me, but I quickly smirked.
Oh, I've already moved out.
What?
I had to suppress my laughter at James's dumbfounded voice. It seemed he had forgotten who owned that house. My brother Liam, who was listening in, was also trying hard not to laugh.
Did you forget? That house originally belonged to my grandparents, and it's in my name.
Oh.
So, whose permission were you planning to get for this cohabitation?
The last thing I wanted was to let such people into my home. Natalie, who enjoys harassing me, and Joseph, who does what he pleases to his grandson without caring about his feelings. And so I continued.
Did you think I didn't know anything? You'll pay the price for this.
My name is Layla. I'm a 32-year-old working mother on parental leave. I have a husband, James, and a 1-year-old son, Oliver. Oliver has recently started walking on his own, so he requires constant attention. Yet, his toddling around is incredibly endearing, and it's comforting when he calls me with his small mouth.
Oliver really loves his mom, huh?
I met James, the father of our son Oliver, through work. My family runs a traditional bakery. Every day, we bake delicious bread, and with smiles, we sell it alongside my parents and brother. Excuse me, miss. Could I have your name and contact details? One day, James, a regular customer, approached me. Seeing James blush as he asked me out, I found him endearing, and we started dating. Your cooking is delicious. Is it? Thank you. Yeah. So, will you continue to cook for me? By my side. And so, we got married without any issues. My parents were overjoyed by our marriage, but my younger brother Liam always seemed to be looking on with skepticism. But he didn't particularly object, so I believe he's happy for us.
Liam says he will take over the shop because living with us would just wear James out.
So with my father's suggestion, the three of us are living in my deceased grandparents' house. We plan to watch Oliver grow up together here. One day, I took Oliver shopping with me. Oliver was holding my hand and toddling as hard as he could.
Oh, Oliver!
We came together. Now, say hello to your grandma.
Oh my God, Oliver!
When we bought bread at my parents' bakery, the regulars and my parents greeted Oliver with smiles. Oliver, unafraid of strangers, was always smiling. Since our house and the bakery are about an hour's drive apart, we visit my parents' home about once a month. And when Oliver and I, in high spirits, returned home.
What? Don't tell me.
The entrance door was unlocked. And there, familiar shoes greeted us. And, as expected, I sighed. Natalie, we did ask you to call ahead before coming, didn't we? Finally back, are you? Where on earth have you been? Ignoring my words, my mother-in-law laid there, watching TV. She probably entered using the spare key James had given her. I sighed again at Natalie, who never listens, no matter how many times I tell her. Come on, don't dawdle. Get on with the chores. I'll take care of Oliver. Saying so, she grabbed Oliver from me, telling me to clean up the mess from the snacks she had eaten. I wish she'd clean up after herself and not touch my son with her crumb-covered hands.
But if I tell her so, it would result in her complaining, as if I'm dirty, and to Oliver, she would exaggerate and say, "What a scary mommy."
Excuse me, Natalie. Please don't say weird things to Oliver.
I retorted to Natalie and took sleepy Oliver to his room. Then, enduring Natalie's sarcastic remarks, I continued with the chores. Honestly, I wish I could just ignore Natalie, but if I take my eyes off her for even a moment, she would try to take Oliver and leave. You're such a bore. I'll be leaving now. Saying so, Natalie left. Which was a relief for me, so I saw her out with a smile.
Natalie can be such a handful.
Muttering to myself, I finished the chores I had left midway. I understand Natalie wants to see Oliver, her only grandchild. But I really wish she would stop coming to our house every day, using the spare key to let herself in.
Hey, could you please take the spare key away from Natalie?
What? Why? After James came home, I talked to him about Natalie. James looked troubled even after hearing me out. I glared at James.
If you don't take the spare key from Natalie, I'll change the locks. And I won't give you a key this time.
Okay, all right.
I'll take the spare key from Mom.
Are you happy? Pressured by me, James reluctantly agreed. I thought this would make things a bit better. But I was about to be disappointed.
I'm going to take the spare key from her, so could you come to my parents' house with me this weekend?
James asked me. Reluctantly, but wanting to see the key taken away myself for the sake of my mind's peace, I agreed to go to my in-laws with Oliver.
You're finally here. There's plenty of housework for you, so get moving. We'll take care of Oliver.
As soon as we entered my in-laws' house, Oliver was taken by my in-laws, and I was burdened with chores. Glancing at James, he stubbornly avoided my gaze. James tricked me. He set me up. Despite feeling betrayed, the odds were 3-1 against me. Wanting to leave the dusty and dirty in-laws' house as soon as possible, I quickly got to work. While I was cleaning, I heard Oliver's loud cries.
Oliver! What's wrong?
Rushing over in a panic, I found Oliver crying and squirming in Joseph's arms, reaching out towards me. I quickly took Oliver from Joseph's grasp.
What did you do to Oliver?
Quiet down. We didn't do anything to him.
Yeah, that's right.
When I glared, James, who had turned practically invisible, explained what happened. Apparently, Joseph grabbed Oliver as he was trying to follow me and forcibly held him back. Despite Oliver's desire to come to me, Joseph was tossing him around as if they were just playing. That's why Oliver was bawling. That's the reason I rushed over.
Oliver is such a crybaby for a boy.
Exactly.
It's because he's being raised by a bad mother. He should be with us. I can't leave Oliver in a place like this. Excuse us.
I hugged Oliver tightly and stormed out of the in-laws' house. I shouldn't have trusted James's words. I'm sorry, Oliver. Once home, I put the worn-out Oliver to bed and vented to my mother about everything. James, who I left at his parents' house, didn't even bother to contact us. About an hour later, the doorbell rang.
Sis, can I talk to you? Liam? What's up all of a sudden? Mom said to check on you. I brought this as a gift.
There stood Liam, holding a loaf of bread from our family bakery. He offered to do the housework for me, saying I must be tired, and cheerfully took care of Oliver when he woke up, brightening both our moods.
You're a lifesaver, Liam.
It's nothing. We're family, after all. Mom also said you can come back home anytime.
Hearing that, I felt a deep sense of relief knowing I had such a supportive family. James returned a few hours after Liam left. He had the nerve to come back after eating at his parents' house.
I've been hurt by all of this, and Oliver too.
I'm really sorry. But it's not like my parents meant any harm.
Oliver was crying.
He would show signs of remorse when I got angry. But it didn't seem sincere, and I couldn't trust him anymore. I was even starting to think about divorce.
James, wake up. James?
When I woke up in the morning, James was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was a note left behind.
I'm heading to Los Angeles for a business trip starting today. Such things should be said in person.
Well, it's less irritating without him here. And taking some distance might help us cool down.
If he's not here, changing the locks shouldn't be a problem, right? This will give us some peace for a while, Oliver.
Oliver, looking at me laughing, laughed too, even though he didn't understand the words. With him by my side, I didn't need James. That was what I was thinking. So, we started living separately for a while. It seemed he was on a long business trip and very busy, making it difficult for him to return. I really miss seeing Oliver. And I miss your cooking. The distance between us led to reconciliation, and we were reporting to each other via video call once a week. Meanwhile, there was no contact from Natalie. Despite changing the locks, I half expected her to keep ringing the doorbell, but nothing happened. It was peaceful, yet inside me was this feeling of an eerie calm before the storm.
Sis, something terrible has happened.
That's when I got a call from Liam, sounding panicked. Listening to him, I learned a secret about James.
That idiot. I'll never forgive him.
Filled with anger, I began to prepare for retaliation. My parents, informed by Liam, also helped, and everything was ready 2 days later. Just as Liam and I were about to leave the house with Oliver, there was a knock.
I have a delivery for you. Is that so? Please leave it here for now.
A huge amount of luggage arrived at our house. The names on it were my in-laws. I immediately called James.
Did the luggage arrive? My parents are moving in with us starting today. Please take care of them.
What a joke. That was the first thing he said. As if I wasn't angry enough with James already. How selfish can James be?
Well, that's that. I'm sure you'll be fine.
I knew James's intentions well enough. He wanted to use his parents moving in as leverage over me, hoping to get various kinds of support from them. Rage surged through me, but I quickly smirked back at him.
Oh, I've already moved out.
What?
James's dumbfounded voice was hard to hold back laughter at. Apparently, he had forgotten who owned that house. Even Liam, listening by, struggled to keep his laughter in check.
Did you forget? That house originally belonged to my grandparents, and it's in my name.
Oh.
So, whose permission were you planning to get for this cohabitation?
The idea of letting those people into my home was out of the question. Natalie, who enjoys harassing me, and Joseph, who does what he pleases to his grandson without caring about his feelings. And so I continued.
Did you think I didn't know anything? You'll pay the price for this.
Who would want to live with a husband who cheats while on business trips?
Hold on, moved out? Exactly as I said. I've already sold the house. What? Why would you do something so drastic without telling me? My parents are supposed to arrive there this afternoon.
It seemed he had planned to force the cohabitation on me without my consent. The reason Natalie hadn't dropped by unannounced recently must have been because she was busy packing for the move. I can only imagine how tough it must have been to clear out the cluttered in-laws' house. But that was none of my business.
That's not my problem.
Don't you dare joke with me.
You're the one joking, aren't you?
Your parents' belongings are in front of the entrance.
Goodbye.
With that, I hung up the phone. He tried calling back immediately, but I rejected the call and blocked all his contacts.
Sorry for making you wait. It's fine. Let's go.
I truly owed Liam. The revelation of James's affair came through him. Liam had spotted James arm in arm with an unfamiliar woman at Universal Studios in Los Angeles, where he had gone with his girlfriend, Emily.
I hadn't seen James since the wedding, but I remembered him because he was a regular at the bakery.
Liam managed to capture evidence of the affair and informed me. Then, with my parents' help, I quickly started making arrangements. Among the bakery's regulars was a private investigator who gathered further evidence. Through connections, a lawyer was introduced to me. A real estate friend of my father's quickly took action regarding the house.
The house was renovated before you two moved in, making it very appealing. It's close to a school and within walking distance to a train station. So, it will sell high and it would be easy to find a buyer.
True to his word, the house was sold quickly. And today was supposed to be the closing day, but instead, a massive amount of in-laws' belongings arrived.
Welcome back, Layla. And you too, Oliver. Both of you, welcome home. You must be tired.
Thanks to my parents' warm welcome, I let out a sigh of relief.
I'm home.
As I said it with a smile, Oliver too chirped in energetically. Everyone laughed in response. Now, all that's left is to fight back.
Mama will do her best, so cheer for me, okay?
To my words, Oliver showed his usual adorable smile.
Layla. Are you the shop assistant today? That's right. Hope you buy a lot.
Then, I started manning the storefront while taking care of Oliver. The regulars greeted me with smiles. Being back at the shop was a joyful time for me. It was thinking so to myself when James and the in-laws appeared.
Layla. Layla.
I stopped what I was doing, handed Oliver over to my mother, and confronted James and his parents.
Let's not disturb the customers here, shall we step outside?
I don't care about the other customers. Forget about them, how could you be so selfish? Oh, like going on a business trip and cheating is any better?
My words caused the regulars to give James cold looks. Noticing that, James went silent for a moment, but he retorted back.
We planned to live in that house, and we sold our home for it. Where do you expect us to live now? And according to James, it seems like Layla is the one who's been cheating.
The in-laws started shouting that. I was taken aback by Joseph's words. Me, cheating? That's absolutely impossible. I am devoted solely to Oliver.
What are you talking about? I've never cheated. Lies. A young man was seen leaving our house.
A young man coming and going from that house, that could only be.
Must be my younger brother, Liam. What? Your brother? Didn't I tell you? I have a younger brother.
As we were talking, Liam appeared from the back. Seeing his face, James looked surprised.
It's been since the wedding, James. What? That's really your brother?
So? You thought I was cheating and without checking, and you cheated yourself?
The business trip was real. However, he had met a woman there and developed a relationship. And without returning home, he chose to nurture his love instead.
And then, you went into debt for her. What?
At my words, the in-laws now turned their gaze sharply towards James. Meanwhile, James's face turned pale, wondering, how did you know?
Unlike you, I did my investigation properly. Not satisfied with just our joint account money, you resorted to borrowing, right? Was it $20,000?
When I checked the account after a long time, there were only a few dollars left, which was a shock. Basically, our living expenses were covered by the salary I had before going on maternity leave. That money was deposited into my personal account from before we were married, securely saved without being touched. For the joint account, we had agreed to deposit money regularly for Oliver's future expenses.
But this is too much. Shall we let others decide then?
My house, inherited from my grandparents and in my name, where James decided on his own to move his parents in, while he indulged in affairs and debts. Me, angered by James, selling my house and moving back to my parents.
Who's in the wrong here, huh?
At my words, the regulars glared at James and his family. Realizing they were at a disadvantage, James and his family backed down.
Could you please leave?
With a smile, I said that, and James and his party hastily left the store. After successfully driving them away, I received applause from the regulars, making me blush and smile shyly. Later, for the affair and for storming into the bakery during business hours, causing a disturbance, I demanded compensation from James and his family. James, already burdened with debt from his affair, and his inherently irresponsible in-laws had no money. Thus, they had to sell whatever they could to come up with the money.
Days later, James came back to me, saying, I truly regret everything. Please help me.
Saying this, James clung to me desperately. I sighed deeply at James.
Do you think I can trust your apologies?
No, this time I really am.
Enough. If you keep pestering me, I'll call the police.
James looked dejected at my words. I gave him a cold stare.
I know why you wanted to live with those two.
James shivered at my words. The in-laws had always complained about their small house and wanted someone for housekeeping. Essentially, they wanted to live in that house with me being their housekeeper. James, always swayed by me, thought having his parents around would make me listen. If they managed to cohabit, he planned to use the saved money for his affair or debt repayment. He probably hoped they'd find my savings account from before I was single.
Am I wrong? How do you know all that?
Working in customer service means observing people. Plus, I married you because I loved you, even if you approached me first. If you love someone even once, you watch them closely, and living together, I've come to understand your way of thinking.
James looked down. And then James, in anger, tried to hit me.
Damn it!
But his hand was stopped before it could reach me by someone who intervened.
That's going too far.
Liam glared sharply at James. Liam has been practicing martial arts since he was young, so he's in very good shape. James, gripped and glared at by my strong brother, completely lost his energy and slumped.
Don't you ever show your face in front of my sister again.
Shouted by Liam, James left with a pathetic sound.
Thanks, Liam. Don't mention it. If anything happens, just let me know. I'll chase them away.
Liam, saying this with a smile, seemed incredibly reliable.
You used to be such a crybaby, always hiding behind me. Come on, stop it. I'm an adult now. And I have things to protect. Right. You definitely can't become like that man.
Liam laughed at my words, of course.
I knew he would protect Emily properly.
Both of you, I need your help.
Okay. Called by my mom, we returned to the store. After that, James, seemingly terrified of Liam, didn't show his face again. Furthermore, when the divorce papers were sent through a lawyer, he signed them without fuss. And so, we were officially divorced.
Actually, the regulars were furious about what happened, saying, "How dare you make Layla suffer?"
According to my mom, the regulars had spread the word about what happened at the store. It became a rumor, and employees at James's company got the wind of it. James quickly lost his place at the company due to the widespread knowledge. Under the cold gaze of his colleagues, James quit his job.
I know I did wrong, so please help us.
I learned that from a call from Natalie. I had completely forgotten I still had the in-laws' contact information saved because I've been so busy.
What exactly do you want help with?
That would be financial support, of course.
Unfortunately, I'm not kind enough to help someone who has harassed me.
With that, I hung up the phone. This time, I made sure to block the contact information properly. Afterward, James was unable to come up with the money for compensation and child support and ended up incurring even more debt. As for the affair partner, it seems she dumped James quickly after realizing he wasn't single. I heard rumors that the in-laws also had to take on debt and now work tirelessly from morning to night alongside James.
Mommy.
What's the matter, Oliver?
On the other hand, we were living peacefully. We take turns looking after Oliver, enjoying our days with plenty of free time. And when I stand at the shop front, the regulars dote on me. Separating from James allowed us to find happiness.
Let's play with Mama today.
At my words, Oliver beamed with an angelic smile. Some time later, our family grew. Liam's wife, Emily, came to live with us. Emily adores Oliver.
I'm so happy to have this little guy as my nephew.
With Emily, I think we can build a happy home.
Liam said this with a smile. If someone who is as kind as James chose Emily to be his partner, I'm sure everything will be fine. If there's ever a problem, next time, I'll be the one to help. Since then, there's been no contact from James and his family. Thanks to that, we've been able to enjoy a very peaceful life.
All right, Mommy's going to do her best today, so you stay with Grandma, okay?
From now on, the 5 of us will watch over Oliver's growth. And today, as always, I set out to make delicious bread with determination. Years later, our family grew even more. Liam and Emily got married and had a child. On top of that, someone who wanted to be with me appeared.
If anyone tries to make mommy cry, I'll protect her.
Oliver has also grown and now says things cute like that. Together with Oliver, I will continue to run the bakery.
Really, she should just hurry up and leave this world. She's such a nuisance.
We, the married couple, said about our son's wife whom we disliked. Ever since she started living with us, she kept making snide remarks. Day after day of accumulated stress. I wondered if we had to continue living with her verbal abuse and harassment. Then, one day, for some reason, she gifted me a luxury car worth $50,000.
I got it serviced, so it's ready to drive, LOL, she said.
Having no interest in luxury cars, I decided to let our son use it. However, when our son returned home 5 hours later in the new car, he was furious at his wife. She was surprised and began to apologize, tears streaming down her face. I am Addison, 65 years old. I live with my husband Ivan, our son Jake, and his wife Betty. Ivan has been a construction worker for many years, and even after retiring, he still helps out occasionally. After graduating from college, Jake joined a top company and then incredibly started his own. It's a web-related company, but I don't know much about it. However, the business seems to be doing well as he often happily talks about his colleagues. Originally, Jake and Betty lived separately from us. But, concerned about us aging and living alone, he moved his company closer to our home. After becoming independent, they started living with us, but instead of a happy family, a major problem arose. Betty, our son's wife. She constantly found reasons to complain about me and Ivan.
The bathroom is dirty. Ivan, don't use it, please.
How dare you speak like that?
But it's really dirty. It's just unhygienic.
Ivan, having worked in construction, sweats due to the physical nature of his job. Even though he's over 65 and retired, there's a serious shortage of workers. So he helps out a bit. He often bathes first. But it always causes a conflict with Betty. Both Ivan and Betty are straightforward, so they never got along. Betty has been in a bad mood ever since she moved in with us. Born and raised in the city, she probably hated the idea of living a bit more rurally with us.
What is this house? There are bugs.
Well, of course, there are bugs.
Unbelievable. I never had bugs when I lived in a condo. This is the worst. Get them out.
Our house is a single-family home. Jake rebuilt it, so it's pretty nice, but somehow, spiders and other bugs get in. There seem to be other dissatisfactions, like the department store being far away.
Addison, what is this meal? It's like something for the elderly. I can't eat this.
Is that so? I'm sorry.
Huh, this is really the worst. I'm ordering delivery. I don't need mine.
Betty said this and began fiddling with her smartphone, her knees shaking. Her harsh words made me shrink back. Betty ate pasta and hamburgers she ordered for delivery. Our meals were more vegetable-heavy, but even that seemed to irritate her. Also, she never did any housework.
I can't be bothered with chores. Addison, please take care of it.
All right. I always felt like a housekeeper in my own home, uncomfortable. The strong-willed Betty really didn't get along with Ivan. Ivan is also strong-willed and blunt, so they were always arguing.
Ivan, don't just sit on the sofa when you get home. Huh? Why do I have to listen to you? Because you've been working and sweating all day, right? It's dirty. Now I can't use the sofa. What did you say? Both of you, calm down.
It was always like this. However, Betty's attitude changed when Jake came home. She would be all smiles and charming when Jake was around. I'm home.
Jake, listen. Ivan was being mean to me again.
Again? Dad, don't be too harsh, okay? And Betty, Dad isn't a bad person, he's just blunt.
But Ivan's way of speaking is unacceptable. It's scary.
When Jake was home, Betty clung to him. We were so astounded by her quick change that we were speechless. Then, Betty's harassment escalated beyond verbal abuse. She rarely cooked, but one day she decided to make a meal. It was a weekday lunchtime, so only Betty and I were home. She seemed to be making pasta, warming up some ready-made meat sauce while looking at her smartphone. The moment I tasted the dish she served, I started coughing.
It's spicy. What is this? Haha, your face is so red. That's hilarious.
Betty laughed out loud. She put death sauce, hotter than Tabasco, into my portion. She laughed at me as I desperately drank water and coughed. Other harassments included setting the bath water too hot and deliberately dirtying the laundry. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to talk to Jake.
Sorry to bother you after work. It's about Betty. Things have been really bad lately.
Bad in what way?
She purposely put death sauce in my lunch, made the bath too hot to enter. If there are things she's unhappy about, I'm willing to try and fix them, but could you talk to her?
Really? Jake was surprised and called Betty right away. Are you harassing Mom?
No way. I would never do that. What did Addison say about me? That's terrible. But you put death sauce in my lunch the other day. And there's more. That's not true.
I just wanted to spice things up a bit and it went wrong. I just wanted to make a delicious pasta for Addison. I'm not good at housework. Mom, I'm sorry. Betty isn't really good at housework. It wasn't on purpose. I'm sorry. I'll stay away from housework since I'm causing trouble.
She said in a voice filled with false regret. I wanted to scream out that it was all lies. But I was too scared to think about Jake believing Betty and leaving. Jake, our beloved and only son, who we raised so carefully. I didn't want to become estranged from him at this age. I had no choice but to stay silent. Betty's harassment only got worse.
Addison, isn't the meal ready yet? You're so slow.
I was just cleaning. Can you wait a bit? You're so clumsy. You could help out a little.
But you said I shouldn't do housework. I'm not good at it, so it's your job, Addison.
Oh, and since the weather is nice today, please wash our room's sheets and pillow covers.
She laughed heartily. I was exhausted, used by Betty every day without rest. Ivan was worried, but I had given up and said nothing. Then, one day, something happened. Betty came to me with a pleased look.
Addison, as a thank you for always taking care of me, please accept this gift.
She handed me car keys.
This car cost $50,000. It's been serviced and is ready to drive.
The dealer had driven it over, and a luxury car was parked in front of the house.
Why all of a sudden?
I thought you could use a new one since your car is old.
Indeed, my car is getting old, but...
You're happy, right?
Thank you. Confused, I nodded at the pleased Betty. Satisfied with my reaction, Betty returned to her room. I didn't really need the luxury car. I decided to offer it to Jake and take his car, and talk to him that night. Betty gave me this car as a thank you, but I don't need a luxury car. You use it.
Really? Thank you. I'll try it out tomorrow.
Jake smiled happily. The next day, Jake went fishing in the new car. I was doing housework as usual, spending some quiet time with Ivan. Then Jake came home. But something was off, and he was slamming the door roughly. Ivan and I exchanged puzzled looks as an angry Jake entered the living room.
Mom, you got that car from Betty, right?
Yes. It was suddenly delivered to our house yesterday. Is something wrong?
Did you touch it?
Of course not. It's a luxury car, so I thought it's best not to touch anything.
Is that so?
Betty!
After hearing my response, Jake called out loudly for Betty. Betty hurried down from her room on the second floor.
Jake, welcome back. What's up? Did you do something to the car you gifted Mom? What? What do you mean? I drove it today, and the engine oil was completely empty. What? You drove it?
I was shocked at Jake's words and covered my mouth with my hand. I was stunned to have given Jake a car with such a defect. Jake looked at Betty with a troubled expression.
It's like you wanted Mom to drive a car without oil. No way! I just wanted to give it as a thank you gift. Today, I planned to go see fishing and drove 2 hours to the spot. But the car made strange noises and even started to smell burnt, so I took it to the dealer, and they said there was no engine oil. Really? I can't believe there was a defect. Maybe the dealer forgot to put it in? I thought so too, but something strange happened. There was no warning light. Normally, when the engine oil runs out, a warning light should come on, but it didn't light up at all. What? I requested a proper service. That's a lie. What?
Betty's expression stiffened at Jake's words.
The person who repaired it happened to be the same person who serviced that car. He said it was strange to get a request to remove the oil and disable the warning light so that no one would notice. It was you, wasn't it? I don't know anything about it.
Betty had deliberately drained the engine oil to make me drive the car. The thought that the engine could fail or cause an accident was terrifying.
I never thought you would do such a thing. No, it's not true. Believe me.
It is true. Ivan, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. Everyone fell silent at Ivan's sudden intervention. Then, Ivan took something out from behind the living room plant. He showed Jake and the others what he removed from the plant.
A camera? Yes. We've been troubled by her harassment for a long time. Thinking you wouldn't believe us, I consulted someone at work, and they suggested keeping evidence. A young guy at work, who's good with cameras and computers, secretly installed these in various places around the house. He set it up so we can view the data on a computer.
Ivan then went to his room and brought back his computer. He wasn't usually a computer user, but he awkwardly operated it and played the camera footage. All the harassment and verbal abuse against me were recorded.
Addison didn't say anything, but it was clear she was being relentlessly worked and was visibly tired. I'm sorry, but if things don't change, we want you two to leave.
Jake clenched his fists tightly at Ivan's words.
It's not true. This is all a lie. What's a lie? You've been lying to me all this time, saying Mom and Dad harass you, are too strict. How could you do such things to someone's parents? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I won't do it again, okay? I can't live with someone who can casually do such terrible things to others. Let's get a divorce. Divorce? That's a problem. Do you know how much that car cost? I took out a loan and can't pay it back. So you married me for the money. That's not true.
I couldn't stand to look at Betty's flustered excuses. I always knew Betty was after the money. She must have been freely using Jake's credit card to shop. Everything she wore was branded. Jake seemed not to notice, maybe because he loved her, but I always thought she was that kind of person.
So how are you planning to pay back that loan? You going to work? Of course you'll work for it, right? Since you gave the car to Mom. If I pay for it, it becomes my gift. Well, I'll do the housework. I'll work and then you pay me. And I'll pay back the loan.
I was appalled at Betty, who seemed to think this was a brilliant idea.
So you plan to dump the work on Mom and just take the money? You never did any housework, always making Mom do it all. That's not true. I can do housework. Then go cook something right now. What?
Jake pointed to the kitchen. Betty's face turned pale and she broke out in cold sweat.
Let's see if your housework is worth paying for.
The ingredients are all there. I had gone to the grocery store that morning, so there should be enough of everything. Betty, thinking she couldn't refuse, trembled as she gripped the knife. She appeared to be trying to make omelette rice. Her awkwardly cut ingredients were unevenly sized. Food spilled from the frying pan as she cooked, and the area around the gas stove was a mess. And the eggs were all broken up. The last time she made pasta, she only warmed up canned sauce. It was clear to both me and Jake that she couldn't cook at all.
And you were going to ask for money for this? You underestimate the job. Do you know how hard I work to earn the money you spend so freely? And to think you'd harass my parents while living off my money. I know that. But I was stressed. I hate this countryside living. Let's go back to our condo in the city. So you took your frustration with country life out on Dad and Mom? Yes. I told Jake I didn't want to come here, but he wouldn't listen.
Honestly, it was hard to watch a grown woman over 30 whine like a child.
Please, let's just live together, the two of us.
Betty repeated her pleas without showing any sign of remorse, almost begging. Jake, coldly responding to Betty, who was looking up at him while holding his hand, said,
Just get out, now. But I've learned my lesson. I'll work hard at housework from now on. Get out!
Jake shouted loudly, dragging Betty out of the house and throwing her out the front door.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm sorry.
Betty cried and banged on the door. Ignoring her, Jake began to throw all her belongings out of the window. Eventually, her apologies turned into quiet sobs. Ivan and I stood in shock, not expecting Jake, usually so calm, to be this angry. After throwing all of Betty's things out, Jake returned to the living room and deeply apologized to us. I'm sorry I didn't realize sooner. I was blind. I thought living together would make things easier for Dad and Mom. But instead, I made things so much harder. You finally woke up, Ivan said.
Yeah, I knew Betty was reckless with money, but I tolerated it since we weren't struggling financially. But I never thought her character was this bad. I almost lost Dad and Mom.
Indeed, if there had been an accident with that car, there could have been serious injuries. The lack of a warning light isn't just a little prank. Thinking about it now sends chills down my spine. Addison had it the hardest. If you're going to apologize, apologize to her. Mom, I'm really sorry. It's okay now. Thank you for believing in us. I was relieved that Jake finally prioritized us. Just continuing our relationship with the Jake we'd always cherished was enough. Ivan, now that Betty was gone, didn't seem to care much, saying, "We got caught by a strange woman," and casually started watching TV. Betty, having picked up her belongings, was nowhere to be seen. After that, Betty called almost every day.
It's your fault. It's all your fault.
She would scream in a high-pitched voice until hanging up. When Ivan answered, she would just shout, but she seemed to cry and apologize when Jake picked up. The harassment wasn't just through phone calls. Garbage and dead rats started appearing at our front door.
What's all this?
Let's get evidence first, Ivan said. He took photos with his mobile phone and cleaned up the mess, putting the carcasses in a plastic bag. There's no way such bold harassment would go unnoticed. It seemed Jake and our neighbors had noticed too. A neighbor friend called, worried about a strange woman lurking around our house. After asking Ivan's construction company to install security cameras, we caught the entire act on video. Seeing this, Jake sighed. Then the next day, Jake went to the police and filed a report. Eventually, Betty was charged with multiple crimes, including threats and obstruction of business. The recorded phone calls and the garbage left at our front door served as evidence. She also caused trouble by showing up every day at Jake's company to apologize. Such a selfish person. Her selfishness led to more fines, increasing her debts. After that, she apparently sold her branded bags and clothes to scrape by. She got a job, but, inexperienced in the workforce, she couldn't keep it and ended up working at a nightclub to make ends meet. Even there, she couldn't compete with the younger crowd and wasn't earning much, living day to day in a very old apartment. This is what I heard from a neighbor. After she caused a scene, crying and screaming at our front door, the neighbors asked what happened, so I told them everything. It quickly spread around the neighborhood, turning into gossip. I thought she would move far away, but without money to move, she's stuck near our lower rent area, living in an apartment about a 10-minute walk away. Any sighting quickly becomes neighborhood gossip. The neighbors, even more talkative than me, seem to know more about Betty's life. Rumors about her are endless, drunk every night, constantly fighting with different men. Jake's company is doing well, and he's busy every day. Seemingly done with romance for now, he's reaping the rewards of his hard work.
How about going on a trip? He suggested. Really? That would be nice.
As an apology for all that happened. Let's go to a spa. We still live together, Jake, Ivan, and me. Life has been peaceful and comfortable since Betty left. Jake occasionally takes us out for meals and shopping, showing his filial piety. I'm proud of how kind he has become. Is there anything you want? Jake often asks. But I don't really want anything. I'm not interested in luxury goods, and while I'm proud of Jake for starting his company, I don't want to splurge with his money. More than anything, I'm happy just living peacefully as a family of 3. Of course, I'd be happy if Jake brought home a wonderful woman next time. I hope he finds someone special and builds a lovely family.